Today we'll be discussing modern democracy. It's a system where you, the citizens, have the power through voting. People get to choose their leaders via elections, and elected officials represent you and make decisions based on what matters to you. Origins of democracy can be traced back to 5th century BC and is often considered the beginning of democratic principles. Citizens participated directly in decision-making in the assembly, which was an opportunity for all the male citizens of Athens to speak their minds and exercise their votes regarding governance. Participation was limited to adult males born in Athens, which meant that women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded. Democracy comes from the Greek words demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning power. So democracy essentially means power of the people. Democratic ideas evolved over time, which influenced modern democratic systems. Famous thinkers such as John Locke had a significant impact on individuals like Thomas Jefferson, so much so that he included the famous phrase, altering it a bit, which stated that all men have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, while writing the Declaration of Independence. As seen in the portrait, it captures from left to right Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson working on the most important documents in U.S. history. Foundational principles include popular sovereignty, which is a fancy term meaning the ultimate source of political power is the people, and they give consent to be governed. Political equality means that all citizens have equal rights and opportunities to participate in the political process. Every vote carries the same weight despite your social or economic status. Rule of law states that no one is above the law and they apply to everyone equally, whether you're a lawyer, teacher, Uber driver, or a government official. Individual rights are protected, such as the freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. The structure consists of elections, which are the cornerstone of democracy. They are conducted in a free and fair manner. Citizens vote to choose their representatives at various levels of government. An example of separation of powers is the United States, which is composed of three branches of government: the executive that carries out laws, consisting of the president and the cabinet; the legislative makes laws, it includes Congress; and the judicial branch that evaluates laws, composed of the courts. Checks and balances of these branches prevent abuse of power because each branch has the ability to limit the power of the other two branches. There are many benefits that modern democracy brings to society, such as safeguarding individual liberties and minority rights against the majority. For example, the courts are in place to uphold constitutional rights and provide an avenue of redress for the people. Officials who are elected to positions are held accountable to the people that voted them in. There is a peaceful transition of power from one administration to the next, despite opposing views. Political stability also attracts investors and promotes economic growth within the region. And democratic societies tend to be more innovative and responsive to citizens' needs. This slide focuses on the rights of women gained under democratic rule. In 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention marked the start of the suffrage movement. It was led by key figures such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. As you can see in the slide, some of the signees of the Declaration of Sentiments, which consisted of 62 women and 32 men who showed up in the Seneca Falls Convention. The document asserted that all men and women are created equal, also outlining the injustices and inequalities that were faced by women in society, and demanding equal treatment under the law, including the right to vote. However, it took decades of perseverance and activism, and ultimately in 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, which granted women the right to vote. It was a landmark achievement in the history of modern democracy. This was a turning point in modern democracy because it allowed women to participate in the democratic process, ensuring their voices were heard in governance. It also promoted the protection of women's rights within the framework of democracy. And the suffrage movement exemplified how modern democracy can evolve to become more inclusive and equal by representing the entire population, which was not allowed during the earlier democratic age. There are several components of justice within a modern democratic network. Everyone has the right to legal recourse and legal representation. Those who are unable to afford legal aid will be provided to guarantee justice for all. Protest and activism are key components of modern democracy. For example, the tragic death of George Floyd in 2020 brought to light systemic issues of police brutality and racial discrimination. Protests around the world highlighted the disparities of how different communities are treated within the justice system. Equality before the law ensures all individuals are treated fairly and impartially in trials and legal proceedings. Peaceful protests, marches, and demonstrations amplify voices and bring attention to injustices. Social media campaigns and online activism also allow for global solidarity and awareness, which are encouraged in a modern democracy. Modern democracy is not all sunshine and rainbows. It also comes with its share of challenges, such as populism, which is a fancy word for a leader who exploits the emotions and prejudices to gain power. Divisions among citizens and politicians can lead to a stalemate that hinders cooperation and leaves no room for a compromise. Corruption is another challenge because individuals in power misuse their position for personal gains, and it undermines the trust in government. Fake news has become a common term in recent years that politicians may use during their campaigns to win votes. However, spreading misleading information threatens the integrity of elections and public discourse. These images illustrate examples of modern democracies and other forms of governance globally. The United States is a presidential democracy within a system of checks and balances. It consists of a two main party system, but there are smaller parties as well, and elections are held for the president, Congress, and state governments. As seen in the image, the US has been a flawed democracy over the past few years due to political and cultural turmoil on the rise. Germany is a parliamentary democracy with proportional representation. The chancellor is at the head of government and the president is at the head of state. It has a respectable full democracy rating of 8.8. India is a federal parliamentary democratic republic with a multi-party system. It is also the largest democracy in the world with a diverse population in culture, language, and religion. It is considered a flawed democracy with a rating of 7.04. These are a few examples of modern democracies that have evolved with unique systems of governance to suit their cultural, historical, and political contexts. Each of these nations has its blend of political institutions, electoral processes, and principles that reflect the values and aspirations of its citizens. China and Russia have continued a downtrend due to their restriction of civil liberties for the former and breach of international law by invading Ukraine for the latter. Yet they are considered on a short list of the most powerful nations in the world. This may beg the question if modern democracy is the correct form of governance. Though modern democracy is a powerful tool for societal progress, it empowers citizens through elections and representative government. Fundamental principles such as popular sovereignty, political equality, rule of law, and individual rights aim to guide its governance. It is crucial in safeguarding rights, ensuring accountability, promoting stability, and encouraging development. Ultimately, justice within modern democracy encompasses equality, access to justice, social fairness, and protection of the rights of all humans. And that concludes the end of this presentation.